Hello Year 4, it's Mrs. Please with your English lesson for Wednesday the 13th of January. Now we're not actually going to carry on with Escape from Pompeii today. Today's English lesson is going to be focused on guided reading, okay, so that you've got a bit of a mixture of activities. So just to get our brains working, we're going to watch a short video that I'll play to you in a moment, and we're going to focus on those skills that we often talk about of retrieval, inference and choice, okay? So I've got 3 questions for you. The first question is a retrieval question. So all you need to do is watch the film clip that I'm going to play and answer the question. The inference question, you're going to need to think a bit more deeply and add some of your own ideas. And then the choice question is when we think about what the author or the person who made the video intended for us to think, okay, why they made the choices that they did. Okay, so here are the questions, and then I'll play the video clip for you to have a chance to think about those questions. So the first one is, what are the bears doing? The second question is, why are the bears doing this? And the third question is, how do the bears choose their trees and avoid a fight? Okay, so listen carefully as I play the video now, and then we'll come back together and talk about those questions. I'll just share the video with you now.
It's becoming warmer, and the bears are keen to shed their thick winter coats. Mothers show the cubs what to do about this. They'll soon catch on. Some trees, it seems, are particularly suitable for rubbing. Bears have their favourites and will travel long distances to visit them. Some itches just have to be scratched. There are now around 30 bears in this one valley. As they rub, each leaves an individual and recognizable scent. So the tree soon carries a list of who's around, which might help individuals to avoid a fight. To best spread their scent, they really have to put their back into it.
Okay, let's have a look at those questions again then. So our first question was, what are the bears doing? So you might like to tell somebody that you're with, or just stop and think to yourself for a moment, what are the bears doing? So the bears were scratching their backs on the trees, weren't they? Okay, they were using the trees to scratch their backs and also leave their scent. Why are the bears doing this then is our second question. So again, you might like to pause the video and talk to somebody you're with, or just think to yourself for a moment. So the bears are actually doing it, well, they all want to scratch their backs, don't they? But also they're spreading their scent. And it did say in the video, if you were listening carefully, that they have favourite trees they travel to, and they use those to scratch their backs, leave their scent on the tree, and also they can smell on the tree what other bears are nearby and what other bears are using that tree. And then finally, our choice question was, how do the bears choose their trees and avoid a fight? So that goes back to that scent, doesn't it? Okay. That might be a clue for you. Okay, I hope you had a chance to think about that one. So the bears sniff out other bears on the trees, don't they? So they know who's using that tree and whether it's okay for them to use that tree or not. Okay, so I hope that got you thinking this morning. Let's have a look at our walk for the guided reading lesson today. So our walk today is to identify main ideas and summarize these. So what do those words mean? I'll just give you a moment to think there, and you might like to pause the video. So what are main ideas and what does summarize mean? Okay, so we know that the main ideas are what the text is really about, okay? Not all the nice detail and description, but the information that we really need to take from the text, the important bits, okay? So that's main ideas. And summarize, we have talked about summarize in school before, so you might remember that a summary is a shortened version of what you've read. So it's when we read something and then we just pick out the main bits that we need to tell somebody else or we need to write down, okay? So a summary is a shortened version and just the important bits. So that's what we're going to be having a go at today. So identify main ideas and summarize these. Right, why is it important to understand what we have read and how can we show that we understand what we've read? So this is thinking about our comprehension skills. So it's really important to understand what we've read, isn't it? If we're reading texts that are far too difficult or too grown up for us, we can't always understand them. And then it means that we don't really know what we've read and we can't explain the ideas to others and we can't learn from those texts if we don't understand what we're reading. So we show our understanding about what we've read by thinking deeply about what we've read and by answering questions on what we've read. And also, like when we use our brain buddy boss, by explaining things to other people. If you can explain what you've read to somebody else, then you really show that you've understood it, okay? So these are our comprehension skills that we work on in our guided reading lessons, and they're really important skills. So let's think back to our Escape from Pompeii text first of all. We're going to practice with this one, and then you're going to have a go at summarising some text that I've shared with you today. So thinking back to Escape from Pompeii, what is the text about? And can you tell somebody you're with, or if you're in school, perhaps tell a partner, one fact from the Escape from Pompeii text, and then see if you can add another and another, okay? If you're working on your own at home, that's fine. You can always pause the video and just either jot down your ideas or think to yourself. So what was our Escape from Pompeii text about, and what facts can we remember from that text? Either pause the video or I'll give you a few moments here to think. So our Escape from Pompeii text is actually a story, isn't it? But it's written about something that really happened. So we would call it a historical story or a story with a historical setting. So Escape from Pompeii, we meet two characters at the beginning, don't we? We've got Tranio and his friend Livia, and they are playing happily in the streets in Pompeii, and then something begins to happen. And as we read on, we find out it's Mount Vesuvius erupting, don't we? Okay, but they don't know what's happening at first, so they're just running through the streets of Pompeii trying to escape from whatever's happening. And Tranio is very clever and thinks that they should run towards the harbour where the boats are. So some facts you might have remembered. Perhaps you remembered some of the characters, Tranio and Livia. Perhaps you remembered that they were children. Perhaps you remembered that they lived in Pompeii or that they lived near Mount Vesuvius. Perhaps you remembered how the dark cloud covered the city, or how Tranio and Livia ran towards the harbour. Okay, so hopefully you've recalled some information from what we learned in our English lessons. So here's our first paragraph of Escape from Pompeii. What do we understand from the first paragraph? What are the main points that we find in the first paragraph? So I'll read it to you now and then we'll have a go at seeing if we can summarise that together. So as I read, remember, we're just trying to identify the main points. Okay, we don't really want description and extra information. We just want the main points of the text. So I'll read it to you now and think if you can identify those main points. On a hillside overlooking the sparkling Bay of Naples, the Roman city of Pompeii glimmered in the sunlight. From his window, young Tranio listened to the humming from bars, taverns, and shops around him, and to the tradesmen haggling in the streets below. Beyond the massive city walls, he could see Pompey's greatest protector looming in the distance. They called it Vesuvius, the gentle mountain. Could anyone feel safer than here, Tranio wondered? Was anything more beautiful? Okay, so what I like to do when I'm finding main points in a text is use a highlighter, or if you're at home and you haven't got a highlighter, you could use a coloured pencil. You don't need to do it for this one, but you can do it for your examples. But let's have a look at this one together. So I'm just going to go through and highlight the main points. I'll read each sentence at a time because I find that really helps me to think about each sentence. And I'm going to pick out just the main bits. On a hillside overlooking the sparkling Bay of Naples, the Roman city of Pompeii glimmered in the sunlight. Okay, which are the important bits there? What do we need to know? We don't need to know glimmered in the sunlight, do we? That's a nice description, but it's not really important information. I think really the Roman city of Pompeii is important, so I need to know that. And possibly the Bay of Naples, that it was overlooking the Bay of Naples, because it does tell me a little bit more about where it was. Perhaps if I had overlooking the Bay of Naples. Okay, let's have a look at sentence 2 and just find those important bits, the main bits. From his window, young Tranio listened to the humming from bars, taverns, and shops around him, and to the tradesmen haggling in the streets below. I think there then, all we really need to know is that Tranio was listening from his window, maybe. From his window, Tranio listened. That's the important bit, isn't it? It's nice information that the bars and taverns were humming and there were tradesmen haggling, but we don't need to know that to understand the text. Let's have a look at the next sentence then. Beyond the massive city walls, he could see Pompey's greatest protector looming in the distance. It's a nice description there, but I'm not sure we need much of it. I think I'm just going to have Pompey's greatest protector, and then I'm actually going to go on to the next sentence because that is more important. They called it Vesuvius, the gentle mountain. So I'm just going to highlight Vesuvius, the gentle mountain, because we know Pompey's greatest protector is Vesuvius, the mountain. We do need the mountain, don't we? Because otherwise people might not know what Vesuvius is. Could anyone feel safer than here, Tranio wondered. Was anything more beautiful? I don't think any of it's that important for us to understand the text. Okay, so hopefully you can see from my highlighting, actually there's not that much information that I really need to know to be able to understand what happened in Pompeii. Okay, so that information would be what I put into my summary. And we'll have a look at how we do that in a moment. So let's move on. We're going to have a look at Emmett's summary now and see how he got on. So here's Emmett's summary of Escape from Pompeii. So he's read the same paragraph that we just read together, and he's bullet pointed his summary. It's really useful to use bullet points in a summary because you don't always need to write in full sentences to just get down that main information that you found in the text. So let's have a look how Emmett got on. So he's written, Pompeii glimmered in the sunlight. From his window, young Tranio listened to the humming from bars and to the tradesmen haggling in the streets. Beyond the city walls, he could see Pompey's greatest protector looming. It was called Vesuvius, the gentle mountain. Okay, you might like to pause the video here. If you're in school, you can chat to the people you're with, or if you're at home, you could talk to somebody there. Or if you're on your own working, that's fine. You might just like to pause the video and think about Emmett's summary. Has he written a good summary, just including the main points from that paragraph? So pause the video and take a moment to think here. Okay, I hope you've had a chance to discuss that or think about that for yourself. So I do like Emmett's summary. He has included some important information, but actually he's got quite a lot of information that we don't need to know. So Pompeii glimmered in the sunlight. We don't really need to know that, do we? If I was going to edit that, I think I'd actually get rid of quite a lot of that. Is there any bit in that sentence that we do need to keep? So Pompeii glimmered in the sunlight. Do we need to keep any of that? I'm going to just cross out glimmered in the sunlight. We only really want Pompeii, don't we? Just to know where it happened. Okay, let's look at his next bullet point. We've got from his window, young Tranio listened to the humming from bars and to the tradesmen haggling in the streets. So again, some of it we need, but a lot of it we don't, do we? So I'm going to get rid of the humming from the bars and tradesmen haggling in the streets. Really, we only need to know, from his window, young Tranio listened. We want to know about our character and where he is, don't we? But we don't really need to know anything else there. Okay, let's look at the next one. Beyond the city walls, he could see Pompey's greatest protector looming. That one's okay, isn't it? You maybe don't need he could see, but the rest of it is quite important. We do need to know that there's Pompey's greatest protector just outside the city walls, because it helps us to understand what happens. And then the last bullet point he's got, it was called Vesuvius, the gentle mountain. I'm quite happy with that one as well, because that's what we had in our highlighting, didn't we? Okay, so you can see how we find the main points, but we don't want all of this extra information where it's really just description. Okay, description's lovely when we write stories and we want to write descriptive writing, but we don't need it in a summary. Okay, so you can get rid of any bits like that, which is good news because it means you'll have less to write today, doesn't it? So let's have a go at summarizing the second paragraph together, and then you're going to be doing some different text for me today, but hopefully this will show you how you're going to do it. So again, I'm going to use a highlighter. If you haven't got a highlighter at home, you can just use a colored pencil to underline, or whatever you've got is fine, but it just helps me to pick out those main points. So we've got Tranio was the son of Dion, the actor, and lived with his parents near the theatre district of Pompeii. Do we need all of that? I think we really just need Tranio lived Pompeii, really. I know that doesn't make a sentence, but I can make it a sentence. So Tranio lived in Pompeii. And you can see I've actually started my summary down here and written that. So those are the important bits for the first sentence. You could include theatre district if you want to, but I think you'd still understand the text if you didn't have it. Let's have a look at the second sentence. He'd often sneak to his friend Livia's house, who lived across the street. So I think there, we do need to know about his friend, don't we? I'm going to have sneak to his friend Livia's house. I don't think we need to know that she lives across the street, really. It's not that important, is it? Let's look at the third sentence. She was the baker's daughter. Do we need to know that? I don't think that's that important, is it? We really want to focus on that mountain erupting and what happened to Tranio and Livia. So I don't think we need to know she's the baker's daughter. Liv, come and play jacks. I've got a bag of bones from Mother's kitchen. They're just the right size. It's really nice detail there, but again, I don't think I need to know that to understand what happened. Next, we've got Livia spent most of her time learning to weave and cook, but during the hot afternoons, she and Tranio would squat by the fountain playing knucklebones or chase dogs up the street. I'm not sure I even need much of that either. Maybe we just have Livia and Tranio would squat by the fountain playing. In fact, we don't really need the rest there, do we, that I've highlighted. I could rub out some of that. I think I'm just going to have up to playing. I think those are the really important bits. So you can see I've started my summary below as well, and I'm using bullet points just like Emmett did because I find that easier. So it would be good for you to use bullet points today to set out your ideas. So I've started with Tranio lived in Pompeii. My second bullet point, let's look back at my highlighting. So I've got highlighted up here, I've got sneak to his friend Livia's house. So I'm going to put Tranio would sneak to his friend Livia's house. So I will try and make sure my sentences make sense, but I'm not too worried about putting much detail in. Okay, let's do another bullet point here. So this time, let's see what we've got. We've got the next bit of highlighting is Livia and Tranio would squat by the fountain playing. So actually, I can just type that in, can't I? Livia and Tranio would squat by the fountain. That really finishes our summary for the second paragraph, doesn't it? So you'll see your summary is a lot shorter than the paragraph that you've read. Okay, so if you find today that your summary is the same length or similar length to the paragraph that you've tried to summarize, then you know you've probably included a bit too much information. Okay, so try and make sure your summary is a lot shorter than what you've read, and use bullet points because that's really helpful to set out the short sentences to explain what you've read. Okay, right, let's have a look then, just to recap here. So when we summarize, we identify the key information. So we've done that using highlighters or colored pencils, whatever you've got. Okay, so first of all, read the text and identify the key information using whatever you've got, a highlighter or colored pencil. We ignore the description. That's really important. We love description in your descriptive writing and in your stories, but we don't want it in summaries. Okay, so get rid of any descriptive writing and get rid of any extra details. Okay, things like Liv being the baker's daughter. We don't really need to know it to understand the text. Okay. Then we write them in a shortened form in order to increase our comprehension technique. Okay, so writing out our understanding and the summarized understanding of the text helps us just show our comprehension skills, okay, and develop our comprehension skills. So that's just a quick summary. Right then, these are the texts that you're going to be reading today and having a go at summarizing. They're on the daily plan for you, and I've made them quite big so you should be able to see them. You don't have to, if you haven't got a printer at home, don't worry too much. You can always read them on the screen. You obviously won't be able to highlight on them, but you can just read them on the screen from the daily plan and then write down your ideas into your exercise book that you've got at home, okay? So you've got Caesar's Calendar Conundrum, Defeat or Retreat, Live Like an Emperor, and The Captivating Colosseum. So all text about the Romans. So hopefully you'll learn some extra information to help with our topic work. I know it looks like a lot because it's 4 texts, but actually they're really short texts to read. Okay, so it shouldn't be too much reading. And then your summaries obviously will be even shorter because you're only including main information. Okay, so those are the 4 texts and they're on the daily plan for you. And then to be even more kind, I've given a worksheet for you. So here's your worksheet. If you're using the daily plan from today, it's on 2 pages, okay? So you can print those out. If you haven't got a printer, again, it doesn't matter, just write it straight into your exercise book, but use this to help you set it out, okay? So we've got the title of the piece of text. So this one's Caesar's Calendar Conundrum. And then the question is, what were the main points? So you can jot those down and then please summarize the text into a sentence or 2, okay? And you've got that for each of those texts. So Caesar's Calendar Conundrum, Defeat or Retreat, The Captivating Colosseum, and Live Like an Emperor. Really, it's the bullet point bit that's the most important, okay? So get those bullet points bits done, and then you can always add a sentence or 2 just to explain what you've read, okay? But by highlighting and underlining and then writing out the bullet points, that's your summary, okay? So those are your worksheets for today. For those of you at school in our key worker group, you might like to share your summaries afterwards. And if you're at home doing your home learning, you could always share your summary with somebody you've got at home, or if it's your favorite piece of work for the day, you can take a photograph and send it to me later, and I'll look forward to seeing those. When you finish, don't forget a learning pit for me. It really helps me to see how you've got on, okay? Right, good luck with the work, guys.